Hi, in this session today, we will understand who's a Hindu and the sources of Hindu law. In the Constitution of India, the word Hindu has been used in some places to denote persons professing any of these religions, which is Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, or Sikhism. However, once we get into specifics, there is a further categorization of who's a Hindu. The first categorization is based on the person who is either a Buddhist or a Jain or a Sikh by religion. The second categorization is based on the person who is a Hindu by religion, which means any child, legitimate or illegitimate, both of whose parents belong to any of the above religion. Any child, both of whose parents is a Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, or Sikh. Any child, one of whose parents is a Hindu, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh, who's brought up as a member of that community, or any person who's a convert or a reconvert to any of these four religions. The last categorization is based on the person's domicile and person domiciled in the territories to which this act extends to, who's not a Muslim, Christian, Parsi, or Jew by religion. Hindu law as a historical term refers to the code of laws applied to Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, and Sikhs in British India. Hindu law in modern scholarship also refers to the legal theory, jurisprudence, and philosophical reflections on the nature of law discovered in ancient and medieval era Indian texts. Mene, who is one of the famous jurists, defines Hindu law as the law of the Smritis, as expounded in the Sanskrit commentaries and digests, which, as modified and supplementary by custom, is administered by court. Before Hindu law, 1955 and 1956, a person who was a Hindu by religion was certainly a Hindu, but the converse was not true. Hindu law got applied to those who could hardly be called as Hindus by religion. Thus, at the time of codification, we had reached a stage when it was easier to indicate a Hindu negatively, which means if you say a person who was not a Muslim, Christian, Parsi, or Jew was by default called a Hindu. As per the earlier law, Hindus are born and they are not made. However, as far as the present law is concerned, this statement is not correct anymore. That means Hindus are born as well as they are made, which also denotes in the specific categorization when we say the person who's a Hindu by religion, and there are many ways in which the person can become a Hindu too. Let's have a look at the sources of the Hindu law. Sources of Hindu law can be divided into ancient sources and they can be divided into modern sources. Ancient sources are further subdivided into or subcategorized into Shrutis, Smritis, commentaries and digests and customs. And modern sources are categorized further into equity, justice and good conscience, precedent and legislations, which means these are the different sources of modern sources of the Hindu law. And these are the four, let's say, sources under the ancient sources of Hindu law. Now, if you look at in detail what the Shrutis are, Shruti means what is heard, which means what the person has listened. It is believed that the rishis and munis had reached the height of spirituality where they were revealed the knowledge of Vedas by the gods themselves. Thus, Shrutis include the four Vedas, Rig Ved, Yajur Ved, Sam Ved, Athar Ved, along with their Brahmanas. Smritis means what is remembered. With Smritis, a systematic study and teaching of Vedas started. Many sages from time to time have written down the concepts written in Vedas. So it can be said that Smritis are a written memoir of the knowledge of the sages. Commentaries and digests, the work done to explain a particular Smriti is called a commentary. Popular ones are Manutika, Mitakshara, and applicable in whole of India, which is minus Bengal and Orissa. Mitakshara literally means new word, and it is the prime source of law in India. Digests were mainly written after that and were incorporated and explained material from all these smritis. Popular digest is Jimutswahana's Dayabhaga, applicable only in Bengal and Orissa, and we will look at the schools of Hindu law in our upcoming sessions where we will discuss about Mitakshara and Dayabhaga in detail. Custom is another source of Hindu law. Most of the Hindu law is based on customs and practices followed by the people all across the country. Even Smritis were have given importance to customs. They have held customs as transcendent law and have advised the kings to give decisions based on customs after due religious consideration. Custom should be ancient, not against morality, not against public policy, not against any law. I think these are the basics of when we can call a custom and when it should be adhered to, and when we can say it is a good custom or a bad custom. So these were the four sources of ancient sources of Hindu law. Now let's look at the modern sources. Equity, justice, good conscience. Equity means fairness in dealing. Modern judicial systems are greatly relying on being impartial. True justice can be delivered through equity and good conscience. In situations where no rule is given, a sense of reasonableness must prevail, which is what even the courts today follow. And they look at equity, justice, and good conscience in those specific scenarios where the law isn't really very clear. The second source of law is precedent. Now, doctrine of stay decisis started in India from the British law or British rule. All cases are now recorded and new cases are decided based on existing laws. Now, precedent is something which is very prevalent in London and in UK. However, today the judgment of Supreme Court is binding on all the courts across India, and the judgment of High Court is binding on all the courts in that state, which basically means that in Indian um, court system as well, precedence is followed. Legislation is the third modern source of Hindu law. In modern society, this is the only way to bring in new laws. The parliament, in accordance with the needs of the society, constitutes new laws. Now, that's our parliament. I mean, our parliamentarians go ahead and create laws in the parliament. Overall, I mean, these are the sources of Hindu law. And if you have any questions or doubts, you can refer to this presentation, which is available on www.jurisknowledge.com, and you can write to me for any further clarifications or questions. Thank you.